work, put some work.
All right. And before we go any further into this, the Bees of Boxing, I got to do a special shout out to Ryan Hardy and the fine folks over at Plymouth Argyle doing God's work, apparently. They got Steve all fired up this week. Steve, how you doing, brother?
Oh, yes, I'm just doing great because of the way that the 4 trophies are still... No, they're not still on because we're out of the FA Cup, 1-0. Yeah, thanks for even doing the research to even get the name right, you swine. This is what happens when you play not your first team against a lower league side, and they humble you. And I didn't see the first half, so I was getting my new watch sorted. But because it didn't work, so I had to go back into the shop, and then it was discovered that I'm a dick. And it was working very easily after somebody went, well, you press this button, right? And then I came back and watched Liverpool lose. So it's not been a great hour or so.
Here's the thing: you said it'd be different if you didn't put yourself out there to lose, or with a bunch of young people out there in the position that they shouldn't be in. And it's funny that you mentioned that because this is the Bees of Boxing, and we talk boxing, and there is a bit of a transition there. Nice segue, if you will, Steve, whether you knew it or not, because this is something that we're going to talk about this week. And I want to talk about this because it seems like this guy right here, Canelo Alvarez, may very well be the smartest negotiator in the world of boxing right now, because what he went and did was kind of brilliant. But in a way, he kind of also did exactly what you said, because he's put himself into a position now with 4 fights with Riyadh, with the Sheikh, His Excellency, instead of fighting somebody like a David Benavidez, instead of, fighting some of these other guys in his weight class. He's going to be what we're going to refer to this entire segment this week is a bit of a bully, a weight bully. And here's the underlying theme, Stephen. I want to get your thoughts on all of this, because we've seen this a lot in the world of boxing, right? Where guys don't want to fight guys that are bigger than them all the time. They literally want to fight guys in weight classes down below them and bring it up. Is Canelo one of these guys?
Yeah, Canelo is, as you say, extremely smart. And, first of all, I'll talk about the Canelo versus Jake Paul thing, which came a day before he made his 4-fight announcement. I don't know if he had anything to do with that. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. He controls his career very well. We know that he wants the people that he wants, and this is more about, well, look at me at the top table here, and he has some control. Well, this is the thing, does he? Because it's His Excellency, you see. So His Excellency has, you're backed into more of a corner, aren't you? Because His Excellency wants the best fights. So His Excellency will not let you say, well, actually, I don't fancy that. I fancy that. That's difficult for him. Is he a weight bully? He if you can do it, if you can do that, why not utilize it? Does that make you a bully? Possibly. It's smart career moves, isn't it? It's not. I don't feel bad about it. I'm not a fantastic Canelo fan, as you know. I would be in the minority. But if you can do it, I think why not go ahead and utilize it?
I mean, maybe Canelo's not the best example of somebody out there who does it. Gervonta Davis is a guy who absolutely does it. Look at what happened with him and Ryan Garcia. and the whole you've got to come down to this weight, you've got no rehydration, no this, no, all of these kind of things. That to me is being a weight bully, right? Because you know damn well what it takes and what a human can actually go through, and you're depleting somebody if they want the chance to try to fight you, right?
It's dangerous, isn't it? It's a danger, and you know, it is gaining an advantage, but then you see, there are several ways to get advantage, aren't there? You know, there's the A side and the B side, as we talked last week. You can be in your home city. That's clearly an advantage. You know, you can get into people's heads. That can create an advantage. This is another advantage, but this is a dangerous advantage. And yeah, it is about, look at me again. It's look at me at the top table. You can't create that advantage if you're not at the top table. You can't say, meet me here. If you want it, I'm going to make you crawl over broken glass to get here. That's the issue. And I suppose it is squeezing your assets. I don't do that because you'll go to the doctors. But squeezing your assets is something that boxers are told to do, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, if you look at it, like this is actually what's going to happen now, right? Because you're going to end up seeing on May 3rd, a gentleman, you're looking at this picture and you're going, who the hell is that? Well, that's William Skull, ladies and gentlemen. He is the IBF 168-pound champion, and he's going to be fighting Canelo Alvarez. And you're like, who the hell is William Skull? Well, this is the thing. This is what I'm getting at. Because if you think about like William Skull, he's a guy that was supposed to fight Canelo before. And Canelo said no. And he actually gave up his IBF championship, if I'm not mistaken, to avoid having to fight him. Well, because His Excellency wants all the belts all the time, he's going to make this happen and said, listen, you're going to do this. So instead of a lead up leading to this fight that we're going to see in September with Terrence Crawford, again, a guy much smaller than Canelo Alvarez, but shout out Terrence Crawford for coming up in weight and wanting to do this fight, right? The person you're not going to get to see is this cheesehead right here, this dunderhead Jake Paul. That's not going to happen. He's the guy that had the wool pulled over his eyes, so to speak. And if you ask me, the way that this kind of laid out, Steve, the way that this kind of laid out was Jake Paul thought he had this fight. He thought he had this in the bag. This was the only thing, in my opinion, that's going to be able to eclipse what he already did with Mike Tyson. And Canelo Alvarez used this as a tool to negotiate with a guy in His Excellency, Sheik Alaturki, who is a purist. I'm finding out the more and more I know about this guy is an absolute purist and wants nothing to do with these YouTuber and that type of influencer boxing and does not want it bleeding over. So what did he do? He signed 4 fights for Canelo. I'm going to give you a 4-fight deal. It's going to just tell me how much money we got to put up against the house. Right? We're bringing the Brinks truck. If you need another one after that, we'll send another one. Doesn't matter. But we're not having Jake Paul in there. We're not.
You're quite right. And, you know, this feeds into what I said earlier on. In that he's a smart negotiator because you can't, you're right. His Excellency is a purist, wants those fights. And he cannot have someone adulterated, but because Tyson Fury did it, AJ did it, and it didn't. I mean, they earned a lot of money, but it didn't do their legitimate boxing careers any good, particularly not Tyson Fury. But he doesn't want Canelo Alvarez to be adulterated, and by saying I'll just go over there, earn loads of money, and come back, well, you won't be as big a draw for me if you do that. You're right. So what do you want? And the thing with yes, he's a weight bully, but I need that clarified because it sounds like a bad thing. And yes, it's a dangerous thing. But what he's doing is he is using his prescient situation at the moment. He's at the top table and he's being served by His Excellency. So that's the only way that Bud Crawford can get this fight. Now that that says something about Bud Crawford and where he is at the moment, and the way that Canelo Alvarez has got more charisma. And I don't think he has got more charisma, but people think he's got more charisma, and he's got more play in the business of boxing than Bud Crawford, because Bud Crawford said, as you say, plaudits for him for coming up. It's dangerous for him to come up, and that's the only way he can get that fight. So why wouldn't you sweat those assets if you can? But it is a dangerous thing for some boxers to do.
And I think it's even more dangerous than people are thinking about when you think about the timelines on this, Steve. Because let's say he was fighting Jake Paul in May. They were going to have to fight at a cruiserweight weight, which is 200 pounds. And then you're going to expect Canelo Alvarez to try to cut back down by September to fight Bud Crawford? Come on. This whole thing was a sham to begin with, to say, hey, Jake, yeah, that's cool. You've got 40, 50 million buys for Netflix that we could probably do with this. But that doesn't do shit for me. And he got worked.
Yeah, he got worked, and this also feeds in, and I feel so good about this. You've got to give me something today after Liverpool have been dumped out of the FA Cup. It feels so good that I am saying that influencer boxing is finished by this time next year, or by January next year. I stand by that, because you said he got worked. Yes, he got worked. And we said weeks ago, he can't now control his opponents. He can't say, I pick you, because other people are coming in and saying, why don't you fight that Boku Parks Cars? Why don't you fight Tommy Fury again? Why don't you fight your brother? He's not in control, and he definitely isn't in control here. And I think it's all over for the man, and all over for influencer boxing. So I stand by that. I'm not going to make any bets, because I'm not a betting man, but I called it here first.
Absolutely, and that's what we do. We call things first, and then we have to remind people when it happens. Listen, all of the biggest names for him in the crossover into real boxing are done. They're gone. That's not going to happen. The only way for him to happen for him now is he's going to have to fight legitimate ranked fighters. Guys this is, you know what I mean? If he wants to have that same kind of draw, because it can't even be a guy that nobody knows. It can't be just a random cruiserweight. It's got to be an actual somebody in the mix.
It has to be Mayweather. It has to be Mayweather. It has to be. It has to be either his brother or Mayweather.
Yeah.
It just has to be. So he's never going to get that fight, and unless it's his brother, that's closer than we think. Mm-hmm. But unless it's that, it's Mayweather. Yeah. And Mayweather will dictate the terms on that, and that'll be a difficult situation for Paul, but he might have to crawl over broken glass. A lot of people are crawling over broken glass this week to say, please, would you come over here, money, and I'll give you some money.
And there's the thing, you're talking a 50-pound weight difference in those two as well. So this, everything is just out. If you're talking names, yes, it's out there. But if you're talking actually keeping it close in the world of boxing, it's not out there for him.
And do you think that influencer boxing has influenced this weight situation? Because, I'm a great fan of, he looks big at the weight, for instance. I love all that, but he's in the weight. He looks big at the weight. And that's something to do with maybe his conditioning, and something to do with maybe other things, and something to all of that, and rehydration, all of that. I love all that. When someone turns up, you think, Christ, they look big. But they're still in the weight. But do you think that the influencer thing of, I'll just fight you, you're bigger than me, but I'll fight you. I don't mind, I'll fight you. You're much bigger than me. Do you think that influences legitimate boxing to say, I'll go up and down in weight now?
No, I think it's the other way around. I think that the influencer boxing is just used it as like, whatever, we don't care about weights. But I think really in the world of actual boxing, it's not the weight that they're chasing. It's the money that they're chasing. And who's the money man in that weight class that's moving around? Where are they going? Because that's where I want to go, because that's the fight that I'm chasing. And this is what's happened with Terrence Crawford, I believe. Right. And I also think that this is what we saw is going to happen with a man that we watched just this past weekend. Your boy, Steve, came out victorious. I'm talking about this guy right here. Chisora, Derek Chisora. And you talk about two guys who looked, who are obviously in the same weight class, but when you saw him in the ring, Otto Wallen is a big dude, and Derek Chisora, I mean, he came to fight. He came to fight like an uncle who had his steak stolen at the barbecue. You know what I mean? He was in it to win it.
Right. Don't get overexcited. Don't get overexcited like the commentary on TNT. Do not. That was outrageous. It's sublime. It's super. No, it's not.
No.
Let's not get too excited. It was the three pictures that he bought. I mean, look at the picture in there in his athletics. He's taken his shorts off in his athletic support. Okay, thank you very much. That's the kind of thing he does. And he produced the three pictures of who shall I fight next, eh? So you got shall I fight AJ? Hooray! Shall I fight Usyk? Hooray! Shall I fight Daniel Dubois? Boo. Right. Well, that's probably the next fight. Now, I've got all sorts of problems with this Tidster. I've got all sorts of problems with this because I'm worried about the man. He's taken an awful lot of punishment. He took a lot of punishment, even though Valin didn't turn up, in my view. More of that in a minute, but he didn't turn up. It was tailor-made for, even though, he's never fought a southpaw for ages. Yeah, it doesn't really matter whether he's orthodox or southpaw if he's not sodding throwing anything. Doesn't really make any difference, does it? So it was tailor-made for him. It was a great night for him. But Frank Warren said, okay, we've got the Dubois fight in the bag if we want. I don't want to see him get hurt. That was just lovely. And let's not get too excited. I don't understand, A, why this fight wasn't in London, because Del Boy Chisora is not a Mancunian. Why isn't he in London? It's ridiculous. That's his last fight in the UK. Secondly, why put him in as for the eliminator for the IBF title? Because he will then want to, whether he fights Dubois and wins or not, he'll want to go on. And I don't want to see the man suffer because I think he's taken an awful lot of punishment. He doesn't slip punches, and I'm really worried about him.
Out of those three, that there's only one name that is really close enough for him, and right now in boxing, and unfortunately, that's Anthony Joshua. He's not getting Usyk. He's not getting Dubois. Dubois is way too young and way too powerful. It is not a way to go out. He says he wants one more fight. He wants that 50th fight, right? But if you look at anybody who's even in and or around him, Otto Wallen was ranked higher than him as it is, right? So the only person who's got a close enough record, who's coming off of, what he's coming off of, still has that name, would be Anthony Joshua.
It's a better fight. More of that in a minute. But first of all, let me just say how besmirched again the IBF looked. Because what's going to happen now then? So he's won. So he's number one. So he's the eliminator. So the eliminator sounds like a wrestler. But will he now say, you're quite right, AJ is the fight for him. That's the money fight. And AJ actually would probably, it would be a fun fight. And if AJ didn't win, Chisora's not going to put him back. It's not like Dubois. He's not going to knock him from here to kingdom come. It will go to the end of the fight. And, AJ can say, well, I was robbed on the scorecard. So that's a bit of a safety net for him. He could just box. He's a better boxer than Chisora. Chisora's a one-dimensional boxer that people love. And I happen to enjoy his shtick and his work. It's not shtick because actually it's him, isn't it? But that's a great fight for him. So he's walking away from this situation with the IBF, and the IBF are going, well, I got a minute. Where are we now? Am I right? Does it look bad for the IBF, this?
Yeah, IBF is a bit of a joke if you ask me anyways. I mean, they're trying to fill up 2 spots at the top of their rankings so that they can do this. This is why they're having an eliminator. Outside of that, you've got Bacole, Sanchez, Parker, Ajagba, Fury, Joshua, Hrgovic, and then Chisora sitting at number 10. These are your rankings. These are your guys that you've got in the IBF. Outside of Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, I don't really there's no name value for him on there. You got, Parker and Bacole, that's already happening. And I wouldn't put I wouldn't put Chisora in there with either of those guys. Outside of that, everybody's young. Everybody's young and hungry and fast, and it's just not a good place for him to be trying to hang out at all.
No, and keep him away from Bacoli and keep him away from Moses, for goodness sake. I happen to like the gentleman, and he's taken a lot of punishment. There are a lot of boxers who you say they're quite, they're still going, but they've slipped a lot of punches. He just comes at you. His ex-handle is war, and that's what he has. And AJ's the best fight for him because AJ lacks the killer instinct now, in my view. So, they grind it out. And Chisora looks okay. That's it.
Two of you Brits, biggest house ever. Let him do that 50th in London with AJ. I mean, come on. That screams British heavyweight boxing. Let him go out. Let him do his thing. Fine, no problem. Win, lose, or draw. You owe him the house, if nothing else.
You do. And also, it's great for Chisora. That's a great fight. It's a great fight for AJ as well, because he has that safety net. He'll probably win, but if he doesn't, he can say, okay, well, it was a great night, wasn't it? And in a way, it's nothing to do with, it's not on AJ's career path. It's him saying, go on then, mate. And if he loses, and he won't get knocked out, I don't think, by Chisora. I don't think he will. I mean, you can see those punches coming for weeks, so I don't think he will. And if they grind it out and he loses, it doesn't really matter too much, because it's an exhibition. Like the Valin fight was an exhibition, really. It's another one. So yes, it's a good fight for AJ as well, just as a tune-up to try and get back up there. You're entirely right. Matchmaker, make me a match.
Well, listen, I don't think that AJ is too many fights away from doing that himself. All right. I think that he's maybe 2 or 3 tops outside of it. Now, speaking of 2s and 3s, before we go real quick here, Steve, I want to mention this because it looks like it's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen it once. It was great. We saw it a second time. It was even better. Why not give it to us a third time? Yeah, it looks like this is happening. Eddie Hearn is saying that the negotiations are very, very strong right now for Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, 3 coming to a theater near you, it looks like. I mean, listen, here's my biggest question for you, because you don't see this a lot in the world of boxing. This is number 3 for them. Why is that, do you think, Steve?
Because we don't yet have the quality, We don't have the quality right down the roster that we need yet in women's boxing. We will.
Let me ask you this. Katie Taylor has 1 loss on her record. It's not against Amanda Serrano. She's fought Amanda Serrano 2 times, beat her both of those times. The only loss on her record, right, is Chantel Cameron. Chantel Cameron is a woman who has fought Katie Taylor twice, beat her once by a majority decision, lost to her by a majority decision. If nothing else, I would love to see Chantel Cameron fight Amanda Serrano.
Oh, absolutely. But that's not the money fight, because the business of boxing says that Katie Taylor has to, she brings an awful lot of fans with her, and she's getting older, and it's people. The general feeling is, when you see fights with Katie Taylor, and the verbiage around her is she's struggling. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it's, at some point it's all going to fall to pieces, because she can't keep going she can't just keep doing this. So part of this is, will this be the time that Amanda Serrano really takes her to pieces? It's that, I don't like that business of boxing stuff, but this is the money fight because of that. You're probably right, but this is it, because there's an awful lot of emotion with Katie Taylor, an awful lot of emotion with all of that. So, you've got that as well. This is the money fight. But you're right, it's not really for anything.
No, and I think that at some point, more stars need to be made. You know what I mean? You're not going to, as long as these 2 are the stars, nobody's going to know about any of these other ladies in the fight game. To steal, to quote this, to make this like pro wrestling, you can only put up with Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes so many times. Every once in a while, you need to see Ric Flair versus Ronnie Garvin. You know what I mean? Just to mix it up a little bit. It's not necessarily going to fill the house the same way, but it needs to happen. Right. And I think that this is something that they need to really, really consider, because outside of Chantel Cameron, there's nothing. Nobody has the records. Nobody has the experience. It's just going to be a walkthrough, which is what we're seeing a lot of the times. At least Clarissa Shields is out there fighting a lot of different fighters and stuff like that, but she's mollywhopping every one of them.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Shields, you've got Baumgartner, you have Chantal Cameron. We need more, as you say, more top liners to be made. But it's early days. And what I think people didn't expect was that women's boxing would suddenly explode, and it has. Yeah. And it's just that the infrastructure wasn't there, so we don't have that strength of the roster yet. But we will. And I don't want to see Ric Flair face Ronnie Garvin at all, to be honest. Just to let you know, it would not make my back crack or my liver quiver. But this is the money match. But as you say, how many more times can we see that before someone says, oh, I know what's going to happen? They might be saying it for this fight. You never know.
You never know. Listen, Steve, as always, people might be saying that, oh, how many more times do we got to listen to these guys? But listen, we speak nothing but truth. We speak truth. We ask the question. The question is always, what's a workaround here, right? And you can always check it out. If you want to know where you can see Steve, you can check him out, World Weary Guy 1, on just damn near anything, or just right here. You know, you can send in emails to us. All of our emails go to the law at liveaudiowrestling.com. No, the law liveaudiowrestling@gmail.com. That's what it is. Holy smokes, there's a lot to remember going on, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, for Steve, I'm Chris. This has been the Bees of Boxing. Until next time, thank you. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe, all of those fun things. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about all of this stuff going on this week in boxing, and we'll see you soon.